Good morning, FedPhoenix fam. Sorry, I'm a little congested. This weather. But so I wanted to make a video today on blue collar versus white collar federal, defendants, convicts, whatever. And it's interesting to me because before I went to federal prison, like many people before they go to federal prison, or before they know someone in like a Fed camp, in a low-level federal prison, I definitely had this preconceived notion that the white collar criminals would kind of be in their own little grouping, and so would the blue. And the white collar criminals, for those of you who don't know, are crimes that are less gritty. Are things like money laundering and embezzlement and tax evasion and that kind of thing. Blue collar criminals are the things that white collar criminals are the kind of people you imagine kind of at the country club. You know what I mean? The blue collar criminals, on the other hand, are people that are, drug related charges, perhaps human trafficking, that kind of thing, gun charges, weapons charges, whatever. And, uh, and definitely in my mind, even though I was technically a blue collar criminal, and even though I don't fit that stereotype, you know what I mean? I definitely felt that I kind of bought into the notion that the majority of the blue collar criminals, again, it's federal, so these are higher level, more serious or more money involved type offenses. Um, and so in my mind, the average blue collar criminal was someone who, was a little grittier, maybe came from a different, a little rougher background, or someone who was more confrontational, or someone who was, kind of, barely got into a camp because, their criminal history points or their whatever, were just more, they were higher, right? And I've had a lot of people ask me, one thing that I've been asked multiple times, which has really kind of every time from this perspective and this place in life has been like, really? But I've had multiple people ask me, because I'm a white collar criminal, I'll be housed separate from like the blue collar criminals, right? No, honey, not at all. Not at all. And having been to Fed camp, I can assure you that although some of your preconceived notions may be correct, or correct perhaps for a large percentage of these groups, they're not 100% accurate. And when you get to prison, as far as like the little cliques, little friend groups and that kind of thing, definitely pretty much all of these obvious people that group together are going to be a mix of blue and white collar. So, and the reality is something that people don't think about is, when I was in prison, and I'm sure currently because I haven't been home that long, a lot of the white collar criminals, right? And you're thinking like Marty Bird off of like Ozark types. That's not who they are. One of the white collar criminals was a very elderly woman, who was in there for Social Security fraud, who didn't knowingly do anything. Her husband had passed, her adult child managed her and her husband's finances, and her adult child, was married and had a business and, whatever. And basically just overlooked reporting to Social Security that the father had died as they're mourning and as they're juggling all these changes. And this had went on for like 6 months until the feds sent the elderly woman, a target letter, because I guess they didn't want to bother, kicking in her door, at God knows what age. Um, and ultimately, even though the daughter said this was a simple, innocent oversight, accident, I will repay every dollar, we're mourning, there's a lot going on here. If anybody did anything, it's me, not my mother. Still, the elderly woman went to federal prison. And of course, all this money has to be paid back that she got from Social Security without, because due to her not reporting her husband had passed, in the time frame they wanted her to. And she was, when she walked into prison, when I got there, she was in a wheelchair due to complications from COVID. And I'm sure will probably never not be in a wheelchair for the rest of her life. She was a white collar criminal. A lot of the white collar criminals were people who jumped on the PPP loan train, during COVID. A lot of people felt like there were so many people applying for this money, right, all over the country. And it's an insane amount of money collectively. A lot of people felt like, I can just get this PPP loan and go on vacation or go on a few vacations or whatever. and I'm going to fall through the cracks. Certainly there's just not enough resources or time for the feds to follow up and just choose me to follow up with, of all people. Why would they, right? To make me try to prove, where my money actually went, and if was it allocated properly. So a lot of these people who did the PPP loan thing were not people who came from privilege. They were not people who is the stereotypical white collar criminal. They were regular people, or people living well below the poverty level. And then your blue collar criminals. A lot of your blue collar criminals were in prison for what are called crimes of association rather than crimes of intent. And especially women tend to fall into this a lot, it seems, more than men. But and what this means is they are not a person who on their own accord, said, oh, at some point decided to commit a crime and followed through with that. No, no, no. They were people who turned a blind eye to someone else committing crime, usually an employer, a husband, a friend, a son, whatever. And because they turned that blind eye, and because, somebody wanted to see more time handed out in relation to the person who was actually doing crime, and they were obviously very close, and most likely they financially benefited. I mean, obviously, if you're El Chapo's, favorite cousin, you're probably going to get, a few horses, even though you're not committing crime. But in America, you would be seen as a co-conspirator because of that, or, or an accomplice, or, whatever. So a lot of the blue collar criminals were not these rough and tumble, whatever. They were simply just too closely associated to the wrong person. And generally all of them financially gained from the actual criminals, criminal behavior. So these were crimes of association, not crimes of intent. Granted, whatever you plead out to sometimes may sound like a crime of intent because, the prosecutor likes doing that, and it's easier for them to influence the judges to give you more time by getting you to agree to a crime of intent, or something that's easily classified as that. But a lot of the blue collar criminals were really just, they were too close to the fire. You know what I mean? They were collateral damage in someone else's crap. And there were lots of blue collar criminals who actually came from money. Just like there were lots of white collar criminals who economically kind of come from the lowest rungs of society. And no, you're not going to be treated different because you're blue or white collar. Matter of fact, in all reality, the guards probably don't even know or give a crap if you're blue or white collar, or even what your actual crime is, unless it's something particularly interesting. You know what I mean? Which chances are, even if you think it is, it's probably not. So in prison, and I've had a lot of people say, well, I'm white collar. So even though I had like a couple DUIs and this and that, I'm still going to go to a camp, right? Because even though I have some criminal history points, I mean, I'm a white collar criminal, almost to imply that you're somehow better than or entitled to some greater privilege than those who aren't. And it's funny too, because most of the people that say these crazy divisive white collar, blue collar things to me are almost always, actually, yeah, they're always white collar criminals. And they're white collar criminals who assume I'm a white collar. I was also a what would have been classified as white collar criminal, because they know that I'm able to articulate well when I want to. Y'all know I have my days. And so they assume that I'm kind of in this bubble with them of this perceived privilege. And so, from our privilege standpoint, I can, give them reassurances that they feel entitled to. And that's not the case. It's really kind of delusional to think, oh, well, I had 5 businesses and I was evading my taxes. So therefore, I certainly will not be in a facility or in a housing unit with people who perhaps, were drug dealers. Oh, come on. And in all reality, the most powerful drug dealers in this country is Big Pharma. Let's be for real. So, and those Big Pharma people, I guarantee the 99.9% of them, the Big Pharma execs who are the real, major drug dealers in our country, they can't fight. The thought of making a shank makes nauseates them and makes them weak in the knees. They're not tough guys. They're not thugs. They're not whatever. So, And the real white collar criminals in this country, the highest level of white collar criminal would probably be the Fortune 500 companies, the large corporations, the billionaires who are getting, they're getting corporate or there's another term for it, but corporate welfare. They're the ones who pay lobbyists to influence high level politicians to do things or pass things to make them more money. Um, and these white collar people that you're thinking, white collar criminals are like this, you know, upper middle class, upper class, hoity toity, just the good folks, the good guys who've made bad decisions. Let me tell you, the top tier white collar criminals who will never see prison, just like the top tier blue collar criminals who will never see prison. But these top tier white collar criminals are heartless. It's all about the money. And they don't lose a wink of sleep over the fact that them becoming rich or them maintaining their wealth and expanding their wealth costs the average, citizen, the general society, just unthinkable amounts of not only suffrage and pain and loss of life. They don't even bat an eye at that. That's irrelevant to them. So while people going into federal prison often think white collar criminals are these, more fragile, more delicate, higher, class of people, and blue collar criminals are like these rough and tumble, that's really not reality. And like I said, the worst of the worst of blue collar criminals and white collar criminals in this country are the people who influence the people, who pull the strings, the puppet masters on those who make the laws and those who determine high level federal funding and grants and bailouts and that kind of thing. Those people, can almost guarantee that they will never see the inside of a federal prison. The people who see the inside of federal prison are the regular people who do things that they are not in an economic bracket to get away with doing, pretty much. That's really what it boils down to. So if you're going to federal prison, you're one of those people who did something or was associated closely with someone and perhaps financially gained from the fact that someone, close to you, was doing things that they do not live or exist in an economic bracket that allowed them to do what they did. And that's really what it boils down to a lot with the injustice system is, your economic bracket, your wealth will largely determine what you can and cannot do. In fact, if you're wealthy enough, like I said, corporate welfare, that's the most scammiest, white collar, grimiest stuff on the planet. Big pharma. It is just downright insidious. Those people can do what they do. They will not see prison. In fact, they will continue to make millions and billions of dollars off of the backs and the lives and the working tax dollars of me and you and your loved ones and my loved ones and the lower level, the society that's not part of that elite 1%, on the backs of the 99. And if we even attempt to do anything remotely close to what they do, or even of the same nature, we go to prison. And us going to prison continues to keep the wealthy wealthy. They say that to house an inmate is like some obscene amount of money per day, per year. Having been an inmate, having been to multiple county jails in my life, when I was younger mostly, having been to the local regional jail, having been to federal prison, I can assure you that obscene dollar amount that the states and the state prisons, federal prisons, private prisons, county jails, whatever, say that it costs them per day to house inmates is insanely inflated. So you have to wonder, after the bottom of the barrel, literally, landfill quality food and, the minimal staffing, most of these places are grossly understaffed, blah, blah, blah. After all the actual costs are accumulated, right? There's a big differential, big chunk of money. You got to go, where does that go? It goes to the private industries that make prison or correctional institutional supplies, which ultimately, if you follow the money, goes back to the 1%. It goes to the people who own the privatized prison system or own the at the very top tier of things, own the businesses that create basically supplemental staffing for private and government ran prisons. And those people give themselves very large, salaries, very large incentives, very large bonuses to their highest level administrators. So the cost of housing inmates mostly is the cost of keeping the rich rich. So if you're not part of that 1%, if it even appears that you're doing on a very minute level what the 1% does on a day-to-day basis for generations openly, you're going to go to prison, and your incarceration will create a much larger contribution to keeping the rich rich than you did during your freedom. And that's your punishment. It's you're not allowed to do that. You're not in that exclusive club. And I'm not saying that people who go to federal prison or convicted federal crimes are all these just regular everyday people, wrong place, wrong time, innocent in general, and are just collateral damage to the economic. We might as well just call it a food chain, because it is a one eats the other, like consumes type situation. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that there aren't people in federal prison or any jail who legitimately have not done harm in such a way or to such a degree that there should be some level of repercussion, including incarceration. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying everyone gets a free pass because you're not rich, so do what you want. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is, when you get to federal prison, you will quickly observe and realize, if you have not already, that whether people are in there for blue collar, white collar, at the end of the day, when you look in the mirror, and most likely when you look in the mirror, you see someone who you feel should not go to prison, who you feel is a collateral damage in someone else's crap, or you feel, yes, this person, I did some things, but me going to prison, or me going to prison for the amount of time I'm going, is excessive, and you're probably right. But just know that when you get to prison, all the people around you, when they were in your position and when they looked in the mirror, they rightfully seen the same exact thing. So you're going to find that when you get to prison, you're going to have more in common than different with literally, the majority of the people you're in there with, regardless of how much time they got, regardless of what they pled guilty to. So this divisive blue collar, white collar thing is only a thing outside of prison, is only a thing to people who are looking at going into prison, have a level of going into prison, and are trying to figure out socially, and where lines will be drawn that could be beneficial to them. And like I said, it's only been white collar people that have asked me about these things. And it's funny because when they do, they usually assume I'm also a white collar criminal, or I, pled guilty to white collar crime. And so when I break it down to them, and then I say, oh, but wait, there's more. I'm technically a blue collar criminal myself. And it's crazy that you're coming to me for support and guidance and information, but you're strongly opposed to being in the same housing unit as me. And then it's always, oh, no, I didn't mean that. No, no, no. Save yourself the time, save yourself the delusion, and understand that when you get to prison, whether you're going to a camp, a low, a medium, mediums are FCIs or USPMAX, whatever, at no point will anybody bat an eye or give a second thought to if your crime is white, classified as white collar or blue collar. No one cares. It's a non-existent issue. The only time that this will even become a topic of conversation is once you get in prison and you get settled in, and you start socializing with people and kind of finding your people in prison, that you mesh with and you gel with. You will talk about everything under the sun, because the fact that the amount of monotony and boredom and just and deprivation is going to make you want to distract yourself any way you can. So you will certainly at some point probably discuss blue collar versus white collar and all that kind of stuff. But outside of that, just being a random topic to be had, because literally every topic is going to be a topic to be had, it's a non-issue. It's a non-issue. It's a non-factor. So with that, so I just wanted to clarify all that. So next time someone asks me, so I'm not going to be housed. I'll be with other white collar criminals, right? I'm just going to, direct them to this video. Um, my Cash App and PayPal. Y'all hear this? Like, it's been raining. It's been cold. My area has a lot of flooding. Just please give me 60, 70-degree weather. I need that like now, yesterday. But my Cash App and PayPal will be in the description. If you would like to donate to the channel, support the cause, there will be a link to the merch line. I would greatly, greatly appreciate, not only you making a purchase, obviously, but more so the fact that your purchase creates a ripple effect where, you're bringing more awareness to the FedPhoenix brand, because I'm going to use this as my pen name when I write my book and that kind of thing. So at this point, I consider FedPhoenix to be my brand. Might be a little cocky of me, right? A little white collar of me. But, it certainly helps, kind of, spread recognition of the FedPhoenix brand, of this brand that is designed to bring awareness to the conditions and the circumstances of, the injustice system and incarceration and how incarceration affects individuals and their loved ones and their communities. And, and it really is kind of an underdog, make lemons out of lemonade kind of thing. And also in the description will be my email if you need to reach out to me for any reason. And as you guys know, I'm working on my first book. I'm not making the kind of progress I should be, in all honesty, but I'm still hopeful that by the end of the year, I will be published on Amazon on KDP, and I'll certainly let y'all know when that happens. The book is going to be called Into the Fire, and it will be a memoir of my 16 months in federal prison. And of course, the author, the pseudonym, my pen name will be FedPhoenix. So with that, good day, God bless, and whatever you are going through, FedPhoenix fam, remember it is a slice of your life, and you will get